But speaking of the summer, it was announced last night on Raw, the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view is making a return on May 31st exclusively on the WWE Network. Doesn't make that big of a difference. It won't be offered on traditional pay-per-view. But based off recent numbers from what I've seen, other than WrestleMania, not many people are buying the pay-per-views anyway. I know like 30,000 people may seem like a lot, but in terms of pay-per-view buys, it's really not. I mean, pay-per-views used to do how many people buying them? Like 100, 200, 300, 400, 500,000 people. And, in recent years, it's been closer to like 200,000, but 20, 30,000 people is not a lot. And there's a lot of reasons why people might not be buying the network. It's not because they don't want it. A lot of people just either can't get it, or they don't like the lagging stream, or they just don't have any need for it. Maybe they don't just, a lot of people, there's some people out there that just really can't afford, honestly, to pay $10 a month, which is fine. There's people that have their reasons. But, either way, Elimination Chamber will be a WWE Network exclusive pay-per-view come May 31st. From what I've been hearing, people have been questioning whether it will be 3 hours. They've been throwing around the term pay-per-view, which is funny because technically it's not on pay-per-view at all. I would call pay-per-views pay-per-views because they're still offered on pay-per-view. This isn't a pay-per-view. This is a WWE Network only event. So I guess we're just going to be calling it an event. I'll probably be calling it a pay-per-view at some point, but technically it is only an event. You can't even call it a pay-per-view even though it's on the network because it's still taking place in the month of May. And as we know, the WWE Network is free for the entire month of May, as it was for April, as it was for February, as it was for November. That's another rant for another day. But Elimination Chamber itself, though, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be pretty cool. I thought the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view itself, when it took place right before WrestleMania, it was a total waste. Some of the shows are pretty good. I really enjoyed the 2011 show. Probably the best one they ever did. But everything else after that, the World Champion retained their title every year after 2010. The 2010 installment was the inaugural installment, and every installment after that, the World Champion, whether it was the WWE Champion, World Heavyweight Champion, or the WWE World Heavyweight Champion, they would always successfully retain their title inside the chamber, and I never understood it. If it's, 3 against 1, 4 against 1, I get it. 5 challengers, the odds of them retaining every single time for 5 years straight got to the point of being ridiculous. I don't think Fastlane is that much better. I thought this year's Fastlane event was good. I didn't think it was great. I thought it was good and enjoyable. The whole Elimination Chamber pay-per-view taking place right before Mania was a total waste. Now that it's happening right after Payback and right before the summer, there's a little bit more excitement and anticipation, a little bit more unpredictability, so to speak. So I'm looking forward to it. But as of right now, though, it's been confirmed that the chamber matches, there will be 2 of them. The WWE World Heavyweight title will not be defended inside the chamber for the first time in years. Actually, the 2 chamber matches, one will be contested for the vacant Intercontinental title, which a lot of people were throwing around that idea last night on Twitter and some forums. It's great to see that come to fruition after Daniel Bryan vacated the Intercontinental Championship last night on Raw. The other chamber match being contested for the WWE Tag Team titles. So, for the first time ever, the IC and Tag Team titles being defended inside the chamber, inside Satan's structure, which I think is awesome. I'm going to talk about this now, the pros and cons of bringing back the chamber. The pros, I think, is defending 2 titles that have never been defended before. The WWE World Heavyweight title has there's no business being inside that chamber. There's always a chance that it could be defended against the guys that are contending for it at Payback, and maybe you throw in Kane, or maybe even John Cena, or a few other names. In that case, I think it's just a waste, because Payback is all about the multi-man format. To do it again 2 weeks later is a bit over-excessive. I'm glad they're not going with that, and instead, the WWE World Heavyweight title, along with the United States Championship, will be defended according to WWE.com, just not inside the chamber itself. So, the 2 chamber matches for the tag titles and the IC title, I think, is awesome. The Elimination Chamber being contested for the Intercontinental title, the timing could not have been better. Does it suck that Daniel Bryan has to vacate the title? Absolutely. But I think, having it be contested and having, to determine a new champion inside the chamber is great, especially if they have a main event the pay-per-view. RJ and I will be talking about this a little bit later, and we've talked about this here before on the show. But I think whatever awaits Rollins after Payback should be Kane. They need to wrap up that storyline, give Kane a title shot, blow off that feud, and then just move on to bigger and better things for Seth Rollins, because I think he's doing a great job as champion. But, even the match with Randy Orton last night on Raw, although I thought it was solid, we've seen it so many times over the last couple of months. We saw it at WrestleMania, we saw it again at Extreme Rules, we saw it on Raw last night, we saw it on Raw back in November, and they've been doing this feud for the last 3 months now. It's time for something new. And maybe from there we get Ambrose and Reigns and whatever. We'll talk about that in our Payback predictions. But I feel like something needs to happen for Rollins to also wrap up the whole angle with Kane, and then we can move into other potential challengers like a Ziggler or whoever else for this summer, which I think is going to be pretty damn cool. So I'm looking forward to that. But the Intercontinental title, if we get Rollins and Kane at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, that doesn't have to main event a show. Kane and Rollins is not the most exciting main event. If we get a 6-man chamber for the IC title in the main event, that would be awesome. I think what they've been doing with the U.S. Championship lately, and if I have time, I'll talk about the U.S. Open from last night. I think what they've been doing with the U.S. Championship lately with around John Cena's waist has been great. It's still predictable that he's going to win or retain or whatever. He didn't win last night, technically. He lost by DQ due to interference from Rusev in his match against Neville. But that he's going to retain because he has a match with Rusev looming. But if they get away from the whole feud thing and they just have John Cena come out every week and defend, randomly and have no feud set in stone, although I would usually favor in the opposite. But I think in this case it works because it gives us great matches. You don't know if John Cena is going to lose or not, which is always possible. So I think the concept is awesome and it's really instilled more prestige into that Star-Spangled Prize. So I think it's great. And if they could do that more with the Intercontinental Championship, and granted, the fact that it hasn't really been seen on Raw at all since Bryan won it is not Bryan's fault. It's not WWE's fault. The guy got injured. They had no idea what the diagnosis was up until a couple days ago. So they still don't know how long he's going to be out, but they know for sure that they have no idea when he's going to be back. So they had to vacate the championship. But still, I feel like, they can really bring prestige back to that championship as well. Bryan could have done that, got injured, so it's unfortunate. But if they put it around the waist of a Sheamus, or a Bray Wyatt, or a Ryback, or a Rusev, or a Neville, or a Ziggler again, it's really going to mean something. So I think, putting those guys in a tournament, or a chamber match, for the IC Championship come May 31st would be great. Even more so, the tag team title chamber match really intrigues me. I think that's awesome. I think we are really pegging for a 6-man chamber tag team match at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, I want to say back in 2013, when it was Cena, Sheamus, and Ryback versus The Shield. We still got a standard 6-man tag team match, which was good, but it wouldn't have been as good. I guess when inside the chamber, you really... you're really protective. You're really kind of limited in terms of what you can do. The Shield was undefeated at that time, so maybe it was better that they went with the standard 6-man tag team format. But I think with the tag team titles being defended, the tag team titles, I think, they're maybe not the most prestigious belts in the company right now, but they're definitely up there. Although they've been changing hands like every other month since the fall. We've been getting a lot of great matches between Cesaro and Kid, and the Usos, the New Day, Miz and Mizdow, all these other great teams. It's really brought back importance and excitement to those tag team titles. I'm looking forward to the 2 out of 3 count falls match on Sunday at Payback between the New Day, Cesaro, and Kid. That could very well steal the show. You don't need me to tell you that. I'm looking forward to that. But if you put, this is the question on everyone's mind right now. I guess we'll find out more in the coming weeks. Whether it's going to be, 3 teams with 1 person in each pod, or it's going to be 6 teams with 2 people in each pod. That could become a bit of a clusterfuck, so I don't know if they're going to do that. But either scenario is great. I think defending those tag team titles inside the chamber is something new. It's something fresh.